Hello and welcome to the Profitable Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Rich, and as the founder of the Bold Life Movement and a fellow coach for more than 7 years, I know the challenges that many of you face when launching or growing your coaching business. And I'm here to pull back the curtain on the coaching industry and help you overcome roadblocks to make the impact you were born to make. Each week, I'll be interviewing successful coaches from every corner of the industry to share exactly how they have managed to generate massive impact and income. From strategy to psychology, we cover it all. This show is presented to you by Transformation Academy, a global marketplace of courses and coaching certifications. So whether you are already part of our epic community or you're brand new to this show, if you're ready to learn what it takes to turn your passion for service into a profitable business, then keep listening. You are in the right place. Welcome back to the Profitable Coach Podcast. You're listening to episode 23 with Jasmin Terrany. I first met Jasmin at a recent workshop that I attended, and I was just blown away by her energy, her charisma, her brilliance, and her kindness. And I was so curious about how she had turned her psychotherapy practice into what she calls a life therapy practice and managed to merge the worlds between psychotherapy and coaching. And she works with the world's top achievers. And so I was very curious, how do you draw these people in? How do you help them find balance in all areas of your life? And so on today's episode, we peel back the curtain on how she's able to create a lucrative coaching business with a psychiatry background, and also some of the ins and outs of the business side of things, of building her brand, positioning herself as an expert. And honestly, it's things that you might not expect to hear. So I'm really, really excited to share her journey with you. And I look forward to diving even deeper today with Jasmin. So without further ado, here's the interview. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Profitable Coach Podcast. I'm here today with the beautiful Jasmin Terrany. Hi, Jasmin.
Hello.
Welcome. I'm so happy that we connected at the recent event with Emily Rivera, who was also a previous guest on the show. And I saw Jasmin speak on stage a little bit during one of the audience shares, and I was like, oh, this woman. I was like, I want to connect with this woman. We have similar playful spirits. And then the more that I've gotten to know you, I was like, I want to share your story with the audience. So I'm really excited that you're here today.
Thank you so much. That's very sweet of you. I appreciate that. It's funny, you don't see yourself the way other people see you. So it's always beautiful to receive that kind of feedback. So thank you.
Totally. And what I think is so cool about putting ourselves in containers like where we met at the Feminine Code event is that I get to see all these different sides of you now. I've seen the little girl on stage sharing from her heart. I've seen the mom and the wife. I've seen the business owner and the life therapist, and, getting to do research and seeing all that you've created in your career. I was like, yes, this is the type of woman that I want to share with our audience, because there's so much experience there and so much human, as much doing as there is being. So pull back the curtain a little bit. Let's go back in time. How did you choose the path that you're on now, in terms of knowing that you felt called to serve? What was the first inkling of that?
Well, I've always been naturally a giver. I've always been, ever since I was a kid, I was always like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? My friends would always think I was nosy. I'm like, I'm not being nosy. I just want to be connected. It was always just I want to be connected. I want to be connected. And my desire for connection was always a heart-soul connection. It always was based on wanting to know that I wasn't alone. I think at the core, it was I'm thinking and feeling all this stuff. Is anybody else thinking and feeling all this stuff too? Am I alone doing this?
Yeah.
Why are we all putting on this facade? And so that was really at the essence. That's my nature. My friends sometimes joke that I'm being a therapist, but I'm a therapist because that's who I am. It's not the other way around.
I relate to that. Yeah, I think I was having dinner with someone the other night, and he asked me, well, who were you in high school? And I was like, oh, what an interesting question. I was like, well, I was a dancer who didn't make the dance team, and so I joined the cheerleading team, and now I see the divine like purpose that was underlying that whole seemingly hard moment in my adolescent life, because now I'm like, oh no, I am a cheerleader. Like I lead people to joy, and I just want to be their like professional hype woman and just like cheer them on and understand them and let them know that they're not alone and they can do this. And I was like, yeah, I see what was happening now.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
We
so
all need those kinds of people in our lives.
I know. Thank you for seeing me. So you started out as a therapist, but you've sort of evolved what that looks like over time. Walk us through a little bit of that journey.
Well, so I'm a traditionally trained psychotherapist. I have 2 master's degrees from Columbia University. But essentially, I remember when I decided I wanted to go to grad school, I wanted to go to this like holistic spiritual program. And my parents were like, listen, just go get like a degree that people are going to think is legit and then do whatever you want with it. It was kind of just the advice that I was given from my parents, who actually didn't do too much advice giving. So when they did, I listened. And so that was really what I did. I went and got these degrees and I got these certifications that people who care about those things would find me acceptable. But then I just integrated all the stuff that is me. And I grew up as a meditator. My mom was a meditator. She would meditate for an hour every day. We would meditate as children. So spirituality, mindfulness was always the foundation of my life and who I am. And then, coaching is a thing, right? And I work with people who are highly successful, don't necessarily have extreme severe mental illnesses, right? So a coaching model makes more sense for that population. And so I created and invented a modality called life therapy, which is the combination of Eastern philosophies and practices like mindfulness and meditation, and Western coaching and psychotherapy. So it's a bridge to bring all the tools in my toolbox to whoever it is that I'm working with.
I love that. And so for people who are somewhat new to the coaching industry and think they have an idea around what distinguishes coaching from therapy, will you just elaborate a little bit on why you think therapy is more suited for this type of the population or this portion, and coaching for this portion?
Sure. Well, psychotherapy is more based on really wanting to hold space and help people find their own answers. And a large part of what I do, I always say, is that my job is to help you feel loved. And I trust that the transformation that happens when people feel seen and heard and loved is what is the magic of really knowing who you are, being seen for who you are, knowing the power within you. So, but a psychotherapy model is more delving into your past, why you are the way you are, or where your patterns and your tendencies come from, like really kind of uncovering the source of certain things that may not serve you. Whereas a coaching model is more goal oriented, it's more objective based. And so the idea for me is like when to integrate both. A lot of the work that I do is very feelings focused. And also the people that I work with are very high achievers naturally or in their professions. And so they generally have the tendency to be very good at goals, right? So they have a goal and they focus on it and they get to it. But a lot of goal achievement, like actually getting to your goals, is a disregard for your feelings, right? It doesn't matter how you feel. You just have to do the thing. It's very like heady and very mind oriented. And so I like to take the structure for people who are very heady and mind oriented, goal oriented, and do the same process for helping them really tap into their hearts and love and relationships and all the things that happen behind closed doors.
I love that. Yeah. And so finding these individuals who are high achievers, high performers, I think is what Brendan Burchard would call them. What is it that led you to choose this particular subset of the population that you really wanted to work with? Given all the different types of niches that you could have chosen, why did you choose high achievers?
I think because I'm a high achiever, quite frankly, it's just like I have very high standards for my own life, but I don't. My definition of success isn't just professional. I'm all about balance. I mean, I named my company over it. I don't think just making a lot of money or having your face on a whatever is my definition of success. For me, true success is figuring out that equation where you're doing something you love, you're able to make an amazing living, you can give back, and you have healthy relationships. You feel joyful or grateful or present in your moments. You connect deeply with the people who you love. And you have people that you love and you connect with in your life. That's even a big one, just even getting them in your life. And having a healthy body. You know, that there's many different parts that I think for me equate my definition of success. And so I found that the majority of people who are professionally successful have figured out that part of it. And that equation doesn't necessarily equate to the other part of it. And so I'm kind of the yin to their yang of being able to relate to the ways that they can do things, but also bring in all this kind of more heart, soul stuff.
Yeah. And I love what you said, that you were drawn to them because you are them. I think a lot of people, when they get to coaching and they're feeling super inspired and they want to help, but they have a resistance to choosing a niche, forget that like the easiest, simplest, and quickest often way to attract people in is just to talk to people who are you 2 years ago, 3 years ago, one relationship ago,
Totally.
whatever it is. So what are some of the ways that you have helped these high performers to call in some of the more softer sides of life? Like, what are some of the shifts that you've been able to help them make?
That's a good question. I'm still thinking about how many of them are really a past version of me. I mean, some of them, can I just make a side? Like, some of them aren't. Like, they're doing $100 million deals. Like, that's not, unfortunately, not me yet. You know? So.
And yet, you're still able to help them.
Yeah, but they're the yin to my yang. Like, the level of confidence that they have in their line of work, I think relates to the level of confidence that I have in my line of work. Like, I'm confident that it doesn't get much better than this. Quite frankly, like, that's my level of confidence. I know that I'm at the top of my game here and you're at the top of your game there. And so you're going to want somebody who can relate to what it's like to be great at what you do.
Yeah. And so how did you get to that level of confidence? Because I think a lot of newer coaches especially feel really inspired and really called to this work, but don't necessarily have the experience yet to own that or be that embodied in that their results or their work can deliver results. So how did you get to that place?
Well, that's a great question. I think that, like I said, I've always been good at it. So, I mean, having the titles or having the experience or having the whatever, that has just been for show so that other people would know that I'm good at it. But I've always known. So I think that that's kind of tapping into knowing who you are and knowing what you're good at. Now, the distinction, I think, for me, that I find difficult with coaching is because coaching is very results oriented and branding yourself is very results oriented. I'm not a fan of it. For me, I find it very challenging because the results are so deep and profound that, like, writing them on your click funnel or whatever feels wrong. Like, it feels out of alignment. And so really at the essence, like, again, my job is to love you. And I believe that is the reason that we all suffer, is that we weren't loved the way that we deserve to be loved and the way that we needed to be loved. And the transformation happens when you are able to be loved that way. And so what is the transformation that I can guarantee? It's learning how to love. It's learning how to be loved. It's learning how to love yourself. It's learning how to do and be love in a way that most people don't even know exists.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. You're reminding me there's a new training that I'm actually launching. By the time this episode comes out, it will have launched. And while the title is somewhat edgy, it's called Sell Like You Sell Like You Make Love. The essence of it is that, yeah. The essence of it is that so many people think of sales as this really like cringy, sleazy, pushy, coercive thing, when I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way. It can really be like, how can I give to you? How can I love on you? How can it feel good for both of us? How can it feel fun and playful and yummy? And I'm spoiling you as my client, and you're spoiling me by like coming into this container with me. And I think that that really applies to all industries. It doesn't matter what you're selling. If we can shift the way we look at it, and like you're saying, whether it's sex or it's love, to me, it's the same. It's like, how can I be fully present with you and let you know that I'm here for you, not to like, it's not a transaction, you know? So I love the way that you say that is leaning away from the goal and just towards the essence of the mission, which is to let them be seen.
Right. I mean, which is to be loved and to love yourself. But it's such a trite thing of like, love yourself. But like, what does that really mean to love yourself? Is to really become who you're meant to be in every level, in every part of your life. You know, if you've been able to become who you're meant to be professionally, but you're still like struggling in your home life, your personal life, then how do you really become who you're meant to be there too? Vice versa, all of it.
I want to go back to what you said about you've always sort of just had this innate confidence in your abilities. And so for anyone who's listening, who's like, well, I don't have that, I'm not necessarily a high achiever, but I still want to be successful, then my advice would be find one little thing, one little win that you can give yourself every day so that you can start to build that confidence in yourself, that trust in your ability. And like you were saying, these have been natural skills that you've had. I am confident that anyone listening to this has some things that they're just innately better at than other people, that people come to them for.
And what happens, you don't realize it because it's yours. Like, so I run this women's group, and the women are like, I don't know how you do this. I'm like, do what? Like, they're like, where did that come? Like, I don't know. Like, you don't even realize it's your innate skill because it's natural for you. And so being able to have that mirror and being able to really look at yourself through that lens of knowing this thing that comes easily for you may not come easily for everybody.
Yeah, right. And some people might be willing to get their credit card out for it because it's that meaningful to them. Yeah. Totally. So on that point, having a community to mirror back to you what you're amazing at, and also maybe where you have opportunities for growth and blind spots. Tell me more about the women's group, because I know this is like really near and dear to your heart right now.
Yeah. So basically, how long do we have for this?
As long as it takes.
I give you the long version, or we'll do the medium version. So,
I honor your feminine. I'm not putting you on any schedule.
Basically, my mom was my soulmate, best friend, like everything. And she died in a car accident almost 9 years ago. And losing her was the most painful, difficult, heart-wrenching experience that I had ever experienced. And there was a huge void. There was a huge void of my person. And like, I love my husband, I love my children, I love my friends, but that space was not fillable. And I just really started to think about, I'm going to get emotional, what it felt like to be loved by her. And how do I create that in my life? And how do I get more of that? And how do I help other people experience that? And so I got really intentional. I created this women's circle for women who I guess were like me, right? I kind of feel like I have my feet in these two worlds of being ambitious, go-getter, high achiever, but I have this more spiritual connected, divine flow, feminine thing going on. Like I always felt like I was too free spirited for all of my conventional education, big job friends, and I always felt like I was too many to-do lists and spreadsheets for like my like earthy, crunchy friends, and I didn't feel like I could really be the truest version of myself with either group of people or individuals because they didn't fully get me, and I wanted to be understood and seen and loved and held, and um, and reminded when I forget like the confidence thing, like just because you're confident doesn't mean you'll forget, right?
Yeah.
And reminded of who you are when you forget, and helping to in the areas where I'm challenged or I'm trying to grow or I'm haven't figured it out yet, like getting that kind of love and feeling seen and supported, and cheerleaded, and the way that my mom did. And also, I think I always had this like high standard for the people whose advice I would be willing to take. Like if you're not doing it better than I'm doing it, or if you're not doing it in a way that I aspire to be doing it, I'm not really interested in your advice. Like everyone's got advice, but like I filter out the type of advice that I'm willing to listen to because I want to be learning from people who practice what they preach. So one of the things I feel most proud about is this group of women. I've been trying to create groups of women for years. It's always been a calling that I've felt, and it's never really stuck. It's never really like clicked in the way that I've like been wanting. And this last year, it finally did, and it's been the most magical, heart-filling experience. Just have these women in my pocket all day, every day. And so now we keep talking about, all right, everybody wants this, everybody needs this. Like we've talked about how much confidence we've created, how connected we feel, like just by not knowing that you're not alone in whatever your individual mission is, just knowing that like you have people who are fully there to see you and support you and have your back and aren't competing with you and like really want what's best for you and believe in you. It's priceless. And so we just keep talking about, well, how do we help other women get this? Like women are meant to be connected. We're meant to be part of a tribe. Like that's how we thrive.
Sister circles.
We want to be talking. We want to be, and so that's what we've been doing. We just started creating a second group, and the goal is to keep creating these little inner circles of women as we create our full circle. I just had this vision in one of my meditations of all the women around the planet with light coming from our heads, holding hands. And the download that I got is that we're meant to raise the vibration of humanity. And I heard the Dalai Lama quote. It said something like, I know that the Western women will heal the world. And I feel like that's the bringing together of these types of women is really what the world needs. So, I got some thinking about it. That's the calling. So I'm following it and learning how to come into that newest version of myself where I don't feel as confident.
So I want to speak more about the women's group in a second, but I feel called to share with you 2 years ago, I started having this recurring dream of very similarly. It was like a light coming down from the heavens, and at the same moment, all of us being like activated, and the people who weren't necessarily receiving the light or having like the light codes turn on their body, they knew to go to those people because they were like the lighthouses essentially. And we were basically covering the earth in like a grid. We're all reaching out, connected by light, like holding hands, just surrounding the earth.
God.
Yeah, I'm getting chills thinking about it again. So it's interesting that you share that's very similar visual.
I wonder how many of us are feeling the call. That's so interesting.
I think a lot of people are waking up, which is why I feel so confident in the direction of the coaching industry, is because to me we're literally just permission slips for people to like remember their own divinity and like let it be expressed, to be a mirror of it. Yeah, this is another side note. I have a friend who is like one of the most magical people I've ever met. He's so creative and he makes everything, everything becomes an experience. Like it's mind blowing what he can come up with. And yet he's very logical. He's an ER doctor, very logical, doesn't believe in a lot of the things that I believe in. And his favorite book is The Little Prince. Are you familiar with that book?
As a kid, like being in Scandinavia or something, but I don't
It's a French book originally,
Okay.
but he gave me the pop-up version for my birthday a couple years ago. So it's like very cool. Like every page is this really elaborate pop-up. And I got the idea to make him a pop-up book for his birthday. And it's basically called The Little Wizard, and talking about how he meets this woman who's from the land of mirrors. So she just reflects back to him how magical he is, even though he doesn't believe in
Oh,
magic. Anyway, so thinking about
I got goosebumps from
coaches,
that too.
I know, I was like, it takes so much time. I like want to paint each thing, and then a pop-up book. I was like researching how do you make a pop-up book.
That's so
There's a YouTube
sweet.
video for everything, by the way.
It's true. It is true.
But yeah, just going back to this idea that we get to be mirrors for our clients, and it's exactly what you're saying about, you know, showing them that they're loved and they're seen, and really cultivating a group of women who get to support each other in that way so that they can go out into the world and live out their missions. So I want to know, in this particular group that you've created, what is it that has made it work? Because a lot of people have women's groups, but they don't necessarily have the same potency of what you've been able to create.
I think that so I came up with a friendship formula to help go from being strangers to sisters. So that comes back to my more methodological. What's my word? I have methods.
Methodical.
Yeah,
Methodical?
methodical. I'm like methodological.
I was like, mythological?
No. Yeah, so essentially the ideas were all busy, first of all. A lot of us, you know, are entrepreneurs. One of them, I don't know how many businesses she's running with her kids, with her husband. Like we all are busy. And so I realized that the amount of time that it takes to find new friends. So like if you want to, like you love your friends, but you might want to just upgrade to find people who are like vibing with where you are now, you know?
Totally.
The amount of time that it takes to find them, the amount of freaking lunches that you would have to go to before they go from being like a casual acquaintance type of friend to being like your soul sister friend. It's a lot of work. I read some articles that it was like 1,000 hours to go from being acquaintance to like really tight, like let's hang in our pajamas on a whatever Tuesday night, you know, friend. And so my process is really how to do that as efficiently as possible. And it's all virtual. We have actually only met in person once, I mean, in the last year. And we all feel like we're like legitimately never been closer to anybody. And it's powerful. Yeah. And we're just connected all day, every day. And from one of them is just in Mexico right now and lost her passports, and like she's reporting to us about her passports being lost. Like that's what's happening, you know. It's not like she's off doing her life. We're all like part of each other's worlds together, which I don't know, I think just makes you feel less alone in the world and more connected and seen and supported and loved.
Yeah. And so how do you cultivate a group where there's harmony for everyone? Like it's a good cohesive vibe versus like, oh, that person doesn't really fit, or these people don't get along. How do you make it work like that?
I mean, at this point, it's an invite only thing, and it's based on your vibe, right? So people are invited when you feel like they are vibrating in a certain energy. And we actually we went through all of the main qualities of ourselves. We did a little sheet of chart to see. We all like said the top 5 qualities of each person. We all did the top 5 qualities of each other to see if there's overlap. We put it all into Chat GPT, and we're like, what are the main qualities that we all have? And like, these are the top 10 qualities of the ideal woman to be part of this community. And so if I think of a few of them offhand, we're all very personal growth oriented. We're all more interested in giving. Like, we're all naturally givers, so we're more comfortable in giving roles perhaps than receiving roles. So we're like learning how to receive from each other by people who are naturally good at giving, I think is nice, because a lot of times givers only attract receivers.
Totally.
Right. And so you're in a dynamic where you're always the giver because that's your comfortable role. And so now we're learning how to practice by people who are good at giving too. So all personal growth oriented, caring, heart-centered, that there's a real desire for betterment of humanity. All of us are doing things professionally that are care about making the world a better place, whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually, you know, and different ways. But there's just a real heart-centeredness about it. I mean, I don't have the list with me, but like, you know, that vibe.
Yeah.
And ambitious and kind of, huh?
I was going to say, when you said you fed it all into Chat GPT, I'm imagining it spit back out a word cloud. So it was like heart-centered is really big, and then it's like ambitious, and there's like playful's for sure on there. You know what I mean? It's like this. My visual brain wants
authentic.
that.
Authentic was one. You know, that we're all really committed to like authenticity as not hiding. And wanting to encourage it. And when you talk about how do you create a cohesive group, is like if you have a bunch of people who are growth oriented, who really want to be their best selves and who are willing to look at themselves. I mean, we've had some challenging moments where people have triggered each other, and then we bring it all and we talk it through, and we're like, oh my God, this is so awesome. We learned so much. You know, it ends up being a beautiful thing, even though it was uncomfortable in the moments. But that's life.
Are you all planning any in-person events for the next year?
We're planning. Yeah, we have an event coming up in April that I just sent the text about it 2 days ago.
I love that. I get so much juice out of being in the room with people that my coaching clients, I'm like, can we all just like create an event together? Because I want to see you. I want to hug you. I want to like eat lunch with you.
I just want to like lay around. Can we just like lay on top of each other?
Yeah. Oh my God, Jasmin. We're the same person.
We went to Nevis, actually. One of the women is very cool. Her family has these villas in the Four Seasons in Nevis, which is this island in the Caribbean. And so she housed all of us. It was so awesome. And we went there for not long enough. And we literally just like were talking incessantly for 4 days straight. And we went from this beach to this pool to this thing. We just got to like hang out and be together. So it sealed the deal. That
sounds so nourishing right now.
Yeah, so good.
I don't know if I told you this when we were chatting about the group in Florida, but I call them do nothing friends. They're the people that you make really easily in high school, easily in college, and you can just be like, what are you up to? Nothing. Cool, come over. Versus like, oh, let's book a lunch 3 weeks out. One of us will probably flake. Like,
yes, I call them hangout friends. It's so funny. Go out to hang out. Like the people who are like your go out friends to your hangout friends who you just like don't have to put yourself together for and just be around each other. Do nothing. Love it.
I love that.
I like how we both have that distinction.
It's such a specific flavor. Like I just want to literally come lay on your couch. You're strumming the guitar. We're talking about like aliens or something. We're just doing nothing, you know? Like these are my people.
What happens is once you have kids, it's so much harder because you have so much less time. You just don't have the time for it. And even if you did, you've got little humans that you are responsible for who are still there, you know? And so it's much harder to find those people and to like have that time. Like I don't have do nothing friends in this life. I've always been good with friends, but this like my son's 10, I'm like in the last decade, I haven't been able to create any do nothing friends because like you have these little kids around you all the time. And unless their kids are exactly the match for your kids, like you don't get to do it together. Or if your husband is the match for your husband or wife or whoever, like, like it's much harder to do it than when you were just looking.
There's a lot of things that have to line up, not just you and that person being aligned.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It's okay. We're planting the seed. More do nothing, friends. It's possible. We're calling it in.
Well, we do nothing. We do nothing now in the chat. So we're like, guess what I was thinking? Blah, 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 blah. I was thinking this. Blah, blah, blah. So we're essentially like continuing the conversation.
Yeah.
Right now in our conversation, it's gone from hemorrhoids to war in Israel to shame to like self-respect to ClickFunnels. Like, I mean, it's
The
kind of
power
all
of
happening
women.
simultaneously.
Asynchronous. Okay, so you brought up ClickFunnels, so I got to take it back to business for a hot second. One of the things that I think a lot of people who go and check out your work are going to wonder is like, how did she do that? How did she do that? Because you're not just beautiful and brilliant, you also have like a legacy that you're leaving, and you have books that you've done. There was a public show that you were on, and so let people know, how did you get some of that exposure? What were some of the like tactical, practical things you had to do to get your message out there?
That's a good question. Well, first, I think that I had to realize that you have to become a business person. So you like have to put on your business person hat, which is not my nature. And so you could be the best thing since sliced bread, but unless people know that you exist, no one's showing. So I think what's difficult is that there's a lot of effort and focus, particularly, I'll speak for myself, you know, you're getting your education, you're getting good at your craft, but then what? Like no one's teaching you how to build a business. So I got really focused on doing all the courses and learning all the things, you know, with the branding and the story brand. I mean, I've done all the things. So a few things that probably were most effective, and it's funny that you see me that way. I don't see myself that way. Let me just back up. Like, right? Like online, I look like I have all those things, but I don't see myself that way. And the reason that I have all those things is because I'm like, oh, other people care about this stuff. So I guess I have to like do these things, because otherwise they're not going to value like little old Jasmin. I'm like, hey, I'm really good at this, you know?
I love that you're sharing this, by the way. This is a universal thing.
Yeah, I don't see myself in that way. Because basically it's all BS. Quite frankly, I mean, it really is. Like I got really good at going on Haro, Help a Reporter Out. And basically like every morning at 6 a.m. when I'd like be on my like exercise machine or whatever, I would respond to something and like do articles. So then I started getting published in all these things. And you know, whenever I would be at some event, I would like force myself to like talk to whoever was the head honcho leader person and like get a picture. Like I hate that stuff, but like then you get a picture and then you're together, and so then obviously we're affiliated because we got pictures together. And
I love that we can laugh about this, because that is how it works, and I agree, that's how it feels for me too.
It's so stupid. It really is. I really, part of my shift is like, how do we create a world in businesses that's not so bullshit?
Well, can I answer that?
You know, like
how I've done that a little bit. So two people come to mind. One, I saw him at a Tony Robbins event, JP Sears. I don't know if you know who that is, but Tony used to show one of his ultra spiritual videos at Date with Destiny, way back in the day.
With the red hair,
he's gone in a different direction now, very freedom oriented now, but his whole brand used to be like ultra spiritual, very satirical about the spiritual community, even though he was in it, you know, it's like making fun of himself, which I love. And so I saw him at an event and everyone's stopping him to take pictures. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. I hate doing that. And so I just was like, hey, love your stuff. Like that video, such and such was hilarious. And he's like, thanks. And I was like, cool, later. And then after the event, I went home and recorded a video about how to integrate UPW in the style of JP Sears. So I like put on the pink headband and I was like super dry and like really weird. And it ended up getting
sent to him and sent to Tony. Actually, someone who worked for Tony told me that it was in their Slack channel and he laughed at it. And so that just kind of like planted the seed of like, hey, I appreciate your work. Hey, I'm going to get on your radar. And so then when I reached out months later to have him on my podcast, it was an easy yes, because he felt like, oh, I know her, but it's different. Right. And another person that puts on these events in Portland, written a bunch of books, Chris Gillibo, he was a big mentor for me when I was finding this world of like adventure and digital nomad life and owning a business and side hustles, things like that. I had an opportunity to meet him at a book signing in Austin. And instead of just being like, let me get a picture, I painted him a watercolor that showed the venue where he always has his events, the book that originally inspired me to start my podcast called Happiness of Pursuit. And then the last one was a picture of an iPhone with my podcast, and the guest name was his name. And I gave it to him and was just like, I love your work. Like, you super impacted me. I started my podcast because of you. Like, keep it up, man. And he was like, let me take your number. Let's stay connected. And so he ended up coming on the show and invited me to speak at his conference next year, which is like where my whole business birthed. So it was like super full circle.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so it's like, you can do it.
Super goosebumps. I love that.
But it goes back to what you're saying, authenticity. Like, I was being authentic.
I love it. I love it. And creative. But that right there is your superpower. Like, so now I'm going to talk to all of your listeners that if you don't have the superpower of being super creative and making like pop-up books and all these things, you have to find your own niche. Because I'm like, I don't have time for that.
I got 2 kids, Kim, remember?
I'll just, you know what my brother did when he was a kid? My parents, it would take him to all these like baseball games. They would have all these seasons tickets when he was in all this, whatever. That's another story. Anyway, what they would do is they would take pictures with the baseball players, and then they'd come back the next year and have them autograph the picture. And they'd like look at the picture and be like, "Oh, that's so cool!" And so like, my brother was a kid, but that was like a special thing that they would take the pictures and then have them autograph the picture. So anyway, my brother had like 45,000 autographs.
It's a lot of baseball games.
I don't think I'm exaggerating.
Bless your parents.
That was a lot of yes. But yes, come up with your own authentic way of like showing somebody that you actually care about them, I think is a beautiful option. So thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah. So continuing this thread, I saw that you had co-wrote or partnered with some women that I very much look up to, Danielle Laporte and Marianne Williamson. So what was the Jasmin way of connecting with people that I imagine you find inspiring and enrolling them in this idea to do a project with you?
So let's see, how authentic am I going to be? I'm going to be honest. So basically, I always had this feeling about Marianne Williamson, like that her quote about when you let your light shine, you unconsciously give others permission to do the same. Always just like was my favorite and resonated with my soul. And then I got invited to be in this book randomly, but maybe do I tell you? No, this is the business side. I'm telling you, like all this is BS. Basically, like the people who put together the book, I'm sure they paid these like thought leaders to be in the book, and then they got all the other authors to pay to be in the book with them. So you get to say, I'm a co-author in this book with these people, and then everyone thinks you're important. But it's not like we sat down and wrote a book together. Like they don't know who I am. And so it is what it is, you know. It's just, I don't know. I this idea of like having to play the game in order to change the game is something that I often think about, you know, and like how much of it is like paying for things that make you. I don't recommend it because I don't really believe in it, and like that's kind of the way of the world. So I don't know.
I love that story. Honestly, I'm so happy that that's the version that you got to share, because I love blowing up these stories that we have about the way things are. I mean, I say 2021 was the year I got red pilled in so many ways. And I think that there's a lot of different areas of life that we can get red pilled in. And it's a Matrix reference for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And I think that's great. Like, we get to decide, do I want to play it just to like be able to get in and like blow it up and really make the difference that I'm willing to make? Or am I just, that's the game I'm not willing to play, and I'm going to do it a different way? And there's no right or wrong with any route that we choose. It's totally up to each individual.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think, it's interesting. I talked to my daughter a lot about content when they're watching TV, of listening to their body, of like, does this feel right? Do you think, like, when you're watching, does this feel like it makes you a good person or a better person? Are you learning something? Does this make you feel icky? Like, to really tap into yourself when you're, or maybe it just like feeds that pleasure center of like, ooh, this is fun. And it's not a right or wrong, good, bad. It's just being intentional. Like, I'm eating dessert because it's delicious. Is it good for me? No, but I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm doing it intentionally. It's not because I'm sneaking in the closet and like doing this thing. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. For me, it felt universally aligned because I always had this feeling about her, and these people just like, I don't know, I don't know how they got my information. It was probably cold calling a bunch of people. Do you want to be in this book? But when they said that her name, I was like, yes, but then they're like, and you have to pay this and you have to do this. I'm like, great, you know what? I'm going to take this one as my sign, and then I'll go from there.
Yeah.
I'm being intentional about it.
It's the same thing as like being a platinum partner. People pay $100,000 a year to get in the room with Tony. And a lot of them do it simply because they want the good picture with Tony. They want to be in Fiji with Tony. And also, the byproduct is you get really good connections, you get experiences. And so whether it's an event, a membership, a book, like, we're all just choosing. So really giving yourself the permission to just choose whatever you're choosing.
Right. No, that's true. When we became platinum partners, that was a big shift. I mean, and to be honest, it changed our lives completely. The willingness to pay for something. And the willingness to pay a lot of money for something. I also think that the buy-in is a whole different level, and your abundance mentality changes. So there's definitely value in the challenging yourself to do the things that you might not really agree with, but to like see the parts of it that really are of value. And I think even owning that, if I am meant to make a difference, if I am meant to do this thing that I feel called to do, then avoiding this or that because I don't believe in it, it might be like short-sighted for the bigger vision, and so playing with those different ideas, I think, is important.
Yeah. And experimenting. I mean, I think that one of the fun things about being a business owner and entrepreneur is that you do have more freedom to experiment. You have more responsibility for sure, but you get to be like, I'm going to try this thing. I'm going to try connecting with these people. I'm going to try investing in this thing. And I love thinking about the different rays of consciousness that Emily shared at her event in Florida, because I've so been leaning into Queen Sorceress, Innocence Pearl, like, a lot lately. It's like, I've made the decision. I invested in a year-long mastermind, haven't invested that amount of money in myself in a while. And immediately it was like,
in Emily's thing?
No, a different one. Sorry, Emily. Different one. A year-long business mastermind. But just the energetics of like saying yes to this thing, it's actually double the investment of what Emily says. Totally. So it was a big decision. But ever since, it was like, the universe said, oh, okay, you're serious again. Great. Here's this thing. We're going to sell out this offering that you just did. We're going to give you an idea for this thing over here. And I just feel like being willing to make that decision is the biggest hurdle that so many people will make. Deciding whether to invest in the group, the coach, whatever, that you're worthy of it, and trusting that once you do, all the right resources will be put in your path, but holding the faith. Yeah.
Well, and also, if you want people to invest in you, you have to know what it feels like. I mean, it's a big deal. The amount of money people pay me, and they just like hand over their card. Like, I need to know what that feels like. You know, I
Yes.
need to know the level of trust that I need to have in something or someone in order. So money is a cycle. And so you need to be able to do both sides of the giving and the receiving.
Yeah. And I was talking to a good guy friend of mine who he's a newish coach, and he was having trouble with like some of his Facebook ads weren't really turning into any great leads, and people were liking stuff but not really wanting to get on the phone because they said, I don't really have the money. And I lovingly, in the context of having been invited to give feedback, not just giving it, it was like, well, what if there's an opportunity for you to be better at receiving in your personal life so that you can receive in your business life? Because I told him a story. I was like, remember that one time I overpaid you on purpose and then you Venmo'd me the money back? And I was like, no, I wanted to overpay you. Like allowing yourself to receive in all these different areas sends a signal, and being willing to invest as well is going to trigger other people being willing to do it into you, just like you said. So yeah, it's all intertwined.
It definitely is. I like just getting good at thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite exercises with clients is this game called You Are a Badass, where in a group, everyone reflects the greatness they see in you to the one who's in the receiver mode. And the only thing the receiver can say is, thank you. That is so true. So they really get to own it. Okay, so Jasmin, as we start to wrap up, what is one thing that you wish you had known when you were first starting to build your business as a therapist and a coach?
Coming. You know, like I would rent out an office space for $25 an hour, and I would charge a client $50 an hour. And you know that people pay so much more than that now. Like to know that like it's coming, and the amount, and I'm actually was doing that this morning with like my next visions of like my old lady self looking at being like, you got this, it's coming, like it's already done. You know, like the amount of like hustle and stress and will it and won't it. I mean, and I still experience it, right? It's like, because there's always the next thing. But that's the advice that I'm still giving myself, is that I like to call it satisfied ambition. It's like how to fully be satisfied with exactly where you are, and enjoy where you are in this moment, and have it be enough, and be working towards something, because what else are you supposed to be doing with your life other than growing and building and evolving? But that there's an enoughness in where you already are, and that attracts more of whatever the next is.
I love that.
So that was very wordy, but hopefully there was a nugget in there somewhere.
No, there definitely was. Well, and it led me to this question. I know you have it on your Instagram, so I'm not outing anything, that now to work with you is $10K a month. So tell people who are listening that aren't even sure how or when to elevate their rates and start to ask for more from people. How do you handle each up level and raising of your
every time?
Love hearing that. So what does that look like for you?
Every time. You're like, oh, well, man. Yeah, but I think also, but then once you start to do it, then it becomes normal, right? It's like people call or want to make appointments, and they're like, oh, I was thinking like 200 an hour. Like there was a time where I would like negotiate or have a sliding scale or whatever. I'm like, oh, that's not worth my time. Like I'll find you somebody who's better. Like that's not I had this one mantra that I heard at some class, was I only want clients who are ready, willing, and able.
Yeah.
And I remember walking down the streets of New York City, like repeating it to me, because I would be like, oh, well, this and that, and I would like move my schedule all over the place to accommodate them, or I would change the fees to accommodate them. And there has to be a willingness to not have them, right? Is like, you don't want a needy coach. You don't want a needy therapist. Like I need to not be needy in order to take care of you. So like, I need to be okay saying no, like this is what it is. And knowing that as I do that, I'm giving you permission to do that in your own life too. right? As I respect myself and as I elevate myself and I have my higher standards, then you're learning how to do that as well. And you know that you're dealing with somebody who can help you do that.
Yeah. And so when you have people come to you, is there ever a question around like the fact that these results are less tangible sometimes because they're excelling in the monetary area of their life, and where you're serving them is in the less tangible areas of life, justifying large investments? I think a lot of coaches are like, I don't know how to justify my rates because the results are so intangible. So how do you own the value of what you're offering?
It's a great question. I'm still working on it, to be honest. But at the very core of it, when you get to the end of life, like, what are the things that are going to mean most to you? You know, just because we don't put a monetary value on love or health or mental health, like, there aren't things that are much more important than that, from my perspective. And so, I mean, I also think that the people that I work with have higher incomes so that the rates aren't as concerning, perhaps. And I think that there's automatically, I mean, this comes back to the branding thing, is like there's an assumption of a higher value if there's a higher price. So if you have the audacity to charge it, then you must be good. I don't necessarily, I mean, that's just the truth of it.
I was going to say, I think a lot of people assume, oh, everyone's bargain hunting. Everyone just buys the cheapest thing. No, a lot of people buy the most expensive version because they just assume it's the best. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And so,
and the people that like I work with want the best, you know, so therefore you have to step it up. Yeah.
And for people who are listening, you get to decide. No one says you need to start your coaching business at a $20 an hour, $50 an hour, $100 an hour rate. If you know you only want to work with people who are 7-figure, 8-figure business owners and you're helping them in their relationships because like their marriage has massively suffered while they were building the 7 and 8 figures, great. Charge a premium. Go save the world. Yeah, I love that.
Where that came from. I have a girlfriend who said you have to see money like the ocean. You know, you don't have a cup. You can come with your dump truck, and there's plenty more where that came from. You know.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Jasmin, I just want to acknowledge you. I so appreciate your transparency and authenticity and your playful spirit and big heart. So thank you so much for gracing us today with your beautiful presence.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. We will see you on next week's episode. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Episode 21 in the books. Again, if you want access to all the show notes, head over to theprofitablecoach.com/021. There you can get all the information on how to follow Marcello, how to go even deeper into internal family systems, and anything else that we talked about on today's episode. Sending a big hug and thank you to Marcello, and to anyone who's listening to this show. If you haven't yet subscribed, I encourage you, hit that follow button on your podcast app of choice. We have a ton of amazing interviews coming down the pipe. And if you have something that you want to hear us talk about on the show, do me a favor. Follow me on Instagram, shoot me a DM at @KimberlyRich, and let me know. Who do you want me to interview? What are the topics that you want to hear about that will help you to grow a profitable coaching business? We love hearing from you guys, and really, we just want to create this show in a way that adds as much value to you and your business as possible. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening. We love you, and we'll catch you next week.